I personally think there needs to be a fair use type of precedent where samples are concerned, particularly before a certain era, because otherwise all of my heroes become criminalized. You know what I mean? Like from DJ Premier to Large Professor to Pete Rock to Marley Marl, I mean, you name it, it was a different era. And I don't think you can apply the hyper greed, hyper capitalist kind of mentality that we're living in now to 3 decades ago.
Right.
Hi, I'm Elia Einhorn. Welcome to the Talkhouse Music Podcast. Here at the Talkhouse, we pair notable musicians for intelligent, unmoderated conversation and release a new talk each week. Regular listeners will have caught episodes like Thundercat and Kamasi Washington in conversation during Pitchfork Music Festival, or Questlove chatting with Slater Kinney and Portlandia's Carrie Brownstein. Check out these and all our past episodes, and subscribe to get new ones on Stitcher or iTunes. This week's talk pairs 2 generations of game-changing producers who have a serious mutual respect society going. Michael Volpe, better known as Clams Casino, and Josh Davis, aka DJ Shadow. While Clams Casino is still in elementary school, DJ Shadow is already on his way to entering the canon of legendary turntablists. Shadow's hugely innovative 1996 debut LP, Introducing, is a seminal instrumental hip-hop record comprised almost entirely of obscure samples. Forever refusing to rest on his laurels, he's continuously absorbed new sounds and explored new sonic directions over the past 2 decades. DJ Shadow's 5th studio album, The Mountain Will Fall, dropped this summer. The record sees the legendary master of sampling using lots of his own original sounds this time around, and features a rad cameo from Run the Jewels. Shadow has also been slowly releasing tracks from the forthcoming 20th anniversary remake of Introducing, for which he's commissioned his favorite producers to reimagine the record. One of the artists who remixed a track for it is Clams Casino, a young producer who's truly a product of the internet age. Clams met his biggest collaborators online and creates many of his best sounds via sampling apps on his phone. He rose to renown through his work with MCs Lil B, A$AP Rocky, and Vince Staples. His debut studio album, 32 Levels, released this summer, features all of those artists and more. Clams' tracks are instantly recognizable and were acknowledged as a big influence on Shadow's newest work. The 2 producers recently caught up in New York City to discuss their new records, Shadow's Introducing remake, the ways that recording and sampling have changed over the years, and how it's sometimes worth giving a great MC a beat you were saving for your own record. Check it out.
The funny thing is we don't really know each other.
Yeah, no.
I mean, we know each other as peers.
Yeah.
And I've been a fan. I mean, just to cut right into it, I mean, my boy in Chicago who like is savagely honest about his taste in music and like hates 99.9% of everything. When the A$AP mixtape dropped, he was like, this shit is a revelation. This is changing everything for me. Wow. You know what I mean? And this is somebody that like, you know, he grew up making rap beats and stuff, but like at a certain point, he was just as likely to be listening to like Indian music from the 30s or something. You know what I mean? He just went way out with it. And for him to be that excited about something, I was like, well, you know, so we were driving around Chicago and he was playing it. I was like, who does the music? I mean, that was my first thing I said, who did the music? So that was really the first time that I became aware of Clams.
Cool. Yeah, the first time, well, actually, I remember reading, before I even knew the music, I had come across an interview of yours. I think it was like around 2008 or something. And just like, I didn't really know the music, but I was reading through some of the stuff and I just had come across it. And one of the things I always remember talking about was they had asked you something that stuck with me, like the drum fills or stuff, saying, I don't know what particular like album, or I guess where they were talking about, but how they were saying like, yeah, just really, really cool how, you know, each time it comes around different, it's not the same drum fill, it's not like a loop or something like that. And I was like, And I would always remember that too. And so that was something that I kept with me. And that was before I even heard the music. And just from like reading interviews, like something that I took away from that is like, you know, even at rap beats and stuff, and a lot of kind of typical stuff would do that, you know, just loops and things. And then like that was just from reading that little line, it was like get me going and thinking of, you know, making things a little more, you know, humanized or something like that. So that was something I took. And then, so actually my father had bought me Introducing CD, and he was like, because he's funny, like he like follows me, all the stuff on my, you know, stuff online and everything. So he'll be keeping up with that stuff online. And then just from like doing, you know, research and stuff and just looking at everything else, he'd be like, oh, I found this. You got to check this out. This guy's like real, you know, legend. You got to check. So he bought me the CD. So that was the first time I actually took in all the music. But like I said, it was like a long time ago that I, you know, just had done that, but never checked it out. And, yeah, so we really don't know, you know, each other too well. We're just like, we, you know.
Although I should say that I asked Clams to tour with me in 2012.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he was like, nah, not doing it.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, and I still feel that way about touring pretty much. So I do like probably 2, maybe 3 shows a year at the most, but I'll try to do a little more, you know, as the years go on, maybe 3, 4 a year. But yeah, that was really cool too. I appreciate that, but yeah, definitely not ready at that time.
I hear you. I mean, looking back on my first tour, the first nationwide tour I did of this country, like I remember one show I just went up there, pressed play on my MPC, it didn't work, and I just sort of shrugged and walked off the stage. That was it. I probably should have, I don't know. I mean, but it was a different era. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when was that, around?
90s. Well, actually, I mean, I was already touring Europe for like years, starting in 93.
Wow.
But in 97 was my first nationwide tour of the States with J. Rue the Damager.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
It was fun, man. A lot of interesting stories from that tour. I think it was eye-opening for both of us. I mean, I don't think he was used to what I was bringing to the table. I don't think he fully understood it at first, but he respected it by the end. And I was already a huge fan and knew all his records like front, back, and center. So I think it was also interesting for him to see that me, with the type of music I was making, how could I be that level of a fan, but also be outputting something that to him sounded sonically so different. But so you got to get out there, man. You got to do those shows. So I kind of know the general, you know, story, but tell me about the beginning. Tell me about like the first time somebody, you know, agreed to use one of your beats, and was it Lil B? Was he the beginning, or were there people before?
He wasn't the beginning yet. Not the very, very first one, but right after, he was one of the first ones. Yeah, it was like, so I first really got serious about trying to get my music out there online, like probably right at the end of like fall 2007. So I started, you know, sending stuff on MySpace, so my buddy was helping me, and so the first dude that I had heard of before was Sha Stimuli, who's a rapper from Brooklyn, and I had heard his stuff on the radio. Like he, you know, he had a song out in like 2004 on the radio, and like Hot 97 New York radio station was playing it, and I liked it back then. So like he was one of the first dudes that like, I had actually heard of before on the radio, and like had listened to his music for a while, and then like rapped on it. So that was that was like the first one ever, and then that's what kind of kept me like, all right, let me just keep going. And then Lil B was, you know, I had been a fan of Lil B and the Pack for a while before that, and then so I was just, you know, he's just one of the ones that responded to me online, and so that was maybe like a year after that, like the end fall of 2008 was when we started working, just, you know, off MySpace and just sending stuff over online, but we hadn't actually met. So we had done a bunch of shows starting maybe like 2013, or like maybe 4 shows, but we hadn't actually even met at those shows. Like we would just see each other in the hallway maybe real fast and say what's up, but we had never met until last summer, like July last summer, when we got in the studio for the first time together. and like sat down and met, and it was like a really weird feeling. Like we hadn't been working for, since 2008 online, but we didn't really talk or sit down or talk till about almost a year ago.
Was that for the tracks for this album?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had come out to LA for a few days in the studio, and yeah, that's like we kind of just sat down and caught up first. It was just like, so it's a pretty funny feeling, but yeah, even at the shows, they were just like not real meetings,
It's kind of indicative of like the way things are done nowadays,
Yeah.
I mean, there were people I was playing in DJ sets that were on German labels, like digital labels, and I just assumed they were from Germany. And then it comes to turn out that they're from like 20 miles from me.
Yeah.
And I just discover their music organically, and like I'm just like, well, I don't really care where they're from. This is the music I'm into. And then time after time, it ended up being like basically local artists that I was discovering in that manner.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy how that works.
I ain't never ran from nothing but the police. From the city where the skinny carry strong heat, Northside Long Beach. Northside Long Beach, hit the counter, make $1, flip it, split the dollars with my mama children. Folks need Porsches, hoes need abortions.
One of my favorite tracks of the last year was North North. How did that, was that kicking around as a demo, as an instrumental? Because I know you sent me the instrumental and it had a different title, right?
So yeah, actually, so that story was, I had made that beat for my album, and I had sent that to a few people. I was trying to get some of the Bay Area dudes on it, that sounded like I had just made it, and it was sitting around for not too long, but I was definitely trying to get Sage the Gemini and like I Am Sue and dudes like that, and I wasn't hearing anything back, and so that came about was like, so we were working on the Vince song on my album. Vince, I had sent him that beat, the one that went on my album, and he wrote to it on his own. We met up and recorded it together, and that was at the time when he was finishing his, and it was like, he was like, I need some more stuff to finish up my album. So that came, so North came out of the process of working on mine, and he was just like, I need some more stuff. I'm almost done with mine. So I gave him, I think I left his studio I left him with about 4 beats, and he used like 3 of those 4 for the album. But yeah, so that beat was definitely for mine. I didn't want to give it up because I wanted to use that on mine. But and I think that was kind of, North was kind of probably based off of the same vibe as the one that's on mine, because he probably wanted something like that, same kind of feeling. So that process, it kind of happened a lot, where it's like making something that I really want, but I kind of have to give it up, So during the making of this album, that's definitely happened, like giving stuff up like that. But
in the record collecting world, they call that dealer versus collector. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I really want to keep this, but if I sell it, it's a tough call.
Yeah, and overall it comes down to, you want to make the best music and you want it to get out, and it's not like, it's not going to do any good if I hold the beat for my album and nobody else is going to use it as well or something. So it's like, you got to do whatever works the best. So I'm really happy with how it came out, and I'm glad to be a part of his album and stuff too. So
no, this is the thing though, is like, obviously already being a fan of yours, and then I'm just driving and I hear that on the radio. Man, that beat is next level, because you just don't hear beats that sound like that. Mm-hmm. Is it a sample, or what is it? What is that main sound that goes through it?
It's actually a Juno. No, it's not sampled. It's sampled from playing stuff and then kind of flipping my own sample. But yeah, it's a Juno keyboard run through a few pedals, like probably a big reverb pedal, like a Holy Grail reverb or something like that. And then also some kind of like distortion or something. So I recorded that sample at the Ship Studio in LA, where I did a lot of work on my album. I'll just run around there. They have so many like keyboards and pedals and just like hundreds of little things like toys and stuff. So
Dope.
Yeah, I'll just run around, every keyboard there, every pedal there, and just connect them all, and just play for like 20 minutes at a time, half hour at a time, just recording stuff and just freestyling. And then not really making beats on the spot as I'm doing that. I would like collect that all and then
Totally.
So I made that beat at home, but just from all the sources that I record at the studio in LA.
Yep.
So that's how it came out. And actually it was really fast, which is funny, is like usually I don't finish beats for like, you know, it'll take like weeks. I'll come back to them and take things from old ideas and pile them all up. And so like I won't finish a beat. That one really was like kind of maybe 15 minutes or something. And I was like happy with it. You know, so like that was a really, you know, rare instance of like kind of sitting down, making it, and then be like, all right, it's done. I mean, that might have been the first time that I've ever done like that, but
it's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when they come quick, obviously you have to be skeptical of it and careful with it, but it's always a good sign.
Yeah, it's definitely like easy to overthink stuff too, or start just keep adding stuff. So like trying to learn how to like stop it and be like, no, it's good to go is like something that I've been trying to teach myself too. But that's one of my favorite things that I had done recently. And just because like you said, it doesn't really sound like anything that I've heard, you know.
No,
and especially for people to rap on it.
But it's hyphy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to me, and I obviously mean that in the best sense of the word, and being from the Bay Area, and the one on your album is too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got that kind of hyphy energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to hear you say that you were trying to get Bay rappers on it. I'm surprised nobody.
Yeah, I had sent it to at least probably three people. I mean, not used to that though. Usually, like, I'll send stuff out to I don't even know how many people before something gets done with it. So I'm used to just like not hearing any responses and stuff. Yeah, just, you know.
I'm surprised by now.
Yeah, it still happens the same way. I think it's maybe it's because they're not really typical, or, you know, people don't really know right away what to do with them. They kind of have to think a little bit more than just like, here's another beat. So I think a lot of people, they would like to, but maybe they just don't really know how to fit themselves around it. And so that's why when I find people that know how to do it, I stick with it. Like Rocky, Vince really knows how to use them. Rocky, obviously, and there's a small group of people that like really can just do it naturally that work with mine. So once I find them, I'm like.
So tell me about Be Somebody.
I made the beat, went to Rocky's house, told him this is for my album. You know, if you want to get on it, you can get on it, but this is for mine. Then he was like, yeah, all right, I'll do it. Then he wrote a little thing to it. Then it was supposed to go on his album. And I was like, all right, that was one I really didn't want to give up, but I was willing to. And then he didn't end up using it on his. So I was like, great, I got it back now. So that was a lot of back and forth on it, but it took a while to finish. He was writing, it was really kind of a short song, and then it was like a verse, a verse and a half of his, and I was just like, I was kind of thinking of it as like a kind of a second part of an intro or something. So I was like, I'm not gonna not use it because it's not really a long song or something. So there was no hook or anything, but I was like, it's still like really cool. And then so just to kind of finish it up and like what'll make it more complete. So I was trying to think of other people to get on it. So I, reached out to B, and he was like really excited. And I was like, they have never worked before, those two guys. And there's no better place for them to do that than my album. So that just kind of fell together. It made perfect sense to me.
He got plenty bodies, he hit anybody, each and everybody, somebody, any, meeny, money, nobody stiff, nobody live.
It's your boy Lil B. ASAP, what up? We just made history, you know that, right? Let's go. Yeah, I make it rain by the corner store. She said I made it far, but I want it more.
So one of the anecdotes I thought I would bring up is obviously you did the remix. This year is the 20th anniversary of introducing. Mm-hmm. So curating this remix album, I wanted to, provide another layer of perspective on the record and invite, my current favorites and a few favorites from other eras to do remixes. So Clams turned in his remix, and I listened to it and I loved it, but I was like, in the back of my mind, I got really worried because I was thinking, shit, did he send a demo of like somebody else's track? I hope this is mine, because I couldn't recognize any of the elements in mine, even though there were so many things about it that seemed familiar. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that voice seems familiar, and the instrumentation, there's something familiar about it. So, and then I wrote to Clams, I'm like, it's really dope, but did you use any of the things that I sent? And he was like, well, yeah, but should I have made them more recognizable? And then as soon as I read that, I was like, okay, I need to listen to this again. And then it was just really obvious once you know that. But I didn't want to assume, because I was worried. I didn't want to become too attached to it, because I was like, if this is just sort of a clerical mistake, and but it's one, without going into further details, one of my 3 favorites on the remix. And actually the mastering engineer was like, he singled it out. He's like, that stem remix, he's like, sometimes these moments make my job all worthwhile.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? So it's definitely like, it's just ridiculous. And to me it shows, I mean, I always feel like sometimes if you make beats for MCs, you have to leave that space for them to do their thing. And sometimes people assume that you can't pull off a full-fledged, and I don't mean you specifically, but any instrumentalist can pull off a full-fledged arrangement. But to me, the stem remix that Clams did is evidence of all the thought that's going on there, because the arrangement is unbelievably well thought out. It's sick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really honored to be a part of that. Thanks for reaching out about that. And so when you first said pick anyone you want, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get on this now, because I want to make sure I get the one that I want. So I did it right away, and I listened through, and that was like easily the first. Like, I don't even know if I listened to anything after that. Once I got thinking about with the remix in mind, I like listened just from front to back, or front up until that point. And then once I realized like that is the one that sounded like something that I would just pick out and sample otherwise, so that I immediately knew just the mood of the original track and stuff, and also that there's so many different parts to use, and so many like ups and downs of being a long song like that. Like, there's so many tools that I can use. So like, and I was able to do that, thankfully. But yeah, it was funny. When I made it, I was like happy that I thought that I would. It's pretty recognizable from the stuff, but sometimes I get caught up and like don't realize maybe how much I've been kind of doing stuff. You just kind of black out and like, oh wow, it's just maybe like going crazy, like flipping it and stuff. But once like you said, once if you kind of point out the stuff, and then it all makes sense. But
I just didn't want to. I didn't want to like cash the check before I knew it was written to me. And I mean, the other thing is that you kind of become conditioned when you get remixes solicited that, I think a lot of people don't feel that they have the artistic license to take it to that degree. And to basically reinvent it as a completely different type of thought.
Right.
Usually people keep the main riff recognizable. They maybe will just change the beat or update the beat to make it, more contemporary or whatever. And for the most part, with a couple of exceptions, that's what ended up happening on the remix album. So when I got yours, I again, it's just flipped to just a lovely degree.
So your album, I was wondering about some of the sounds, like just the process of that. Like I don't know if I read it on your Twitter or something, but I feel like I heard a couple months ago that is less. I mean, it's more of you recording sounds and stuff and less samples, or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, actually, you mentioned like recording synths and just like trying to take it someplace, and then that becomes your sample base.
Yep.
And actually, one of the first things I did for this album was, I'm fortunate to live pretty close to this guy, Jack Dangers, who was a pioneering. He was working with samples in the late '80s to make dance music as a group called Meat Beat Manifesto. And he, at various times over the last couple of decades, has secured some of the rarest synths in the world. Wow. They had to knock a wall down in his house to bring in this synth that he bought from a university in Australia. And it's one of, I think, only 4. And it takes up most of a wall. It's modular, and you feel like you need to wear a lab coat when you operate it, because it's got all these oscilloscopes on it and stuff like that. And it's really powerful. And it's very easy to make pretty interesting sounds on it. And so, I just booked a few sessions at his place, and he would pull down a Korg and be like, look, here's how they did, R2-D2. Wow. And he'll do it exactly. And then he'll tell me that, that synth came out a year before Star Wars. So, they were using brand new technology then to do all this stuff. And that was one of my sample sources. But and then you also mentioned, just being online and seeing a list of all the samples and from some of my other stuff. And it's a little bit of a tight squeeze to be in creatively, because I want to continue to make music that's sample based, but we're living in this strange dichotomy where music has technically never been worth less, and yet where samples are concerned, people have never wanted more. So it's a fine line to walk, and I think with every record that I do, I'm trying to liberate myself a little bit, while not, if I find a sample while I'm listening through records or whatever that's undeniable, I'm still going to try to flip it and try to clear it. But there were songs I had to leave off this record for various reasons, and including sample clearance. And again, sadly, I personally think there needs to be a fair use type of precedent where samples are concerned, particularly before a certain era, because otherwise all of my heroes become criminalized. You know what I mean? Like from DJ Premier to Large Professor to Pete Rock to Marley Marl. You name it, it was a different era. And I don't think you can apply the hyper greed, hyper capitalist kind of mentality that we're living in now to 3 decades ago.
Right.
And or for that matter, 2 decades ago when I made Introducing. It just was a different era. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I feel the same way about, that's kind of in, the past 5 years or so for me, that has been a big part of, forcing me to kind of find another way to go about stuff. And and it took me a while to get into it. Like it took me probably at least 2 years or even 3 years to get fully comfortable with like recording something on my own that sounds like I found it or something, and at first when I was like, well, I really can't sample anymore because it probably will never come out the way I want it to, and I can put it out for, online for free or something, but it's, if I want to do anything else, like it's too restricting. So I was like, what am I going to do? And so for a few years I was really just like trying to get better at that and just trial and error, like, how do I do it? And now I feel throughout that process, 5 years later or a few years later, that I can like, pick something up, run it through a few things, and then now it sounds like a sample source, So I'm much more comfortable with it now, and I can do it faster, and it's been a big help. But it took a long time for me to figure that out.
And what do you use to make beats on?
Well, the main thing this hasn't changed. The main like software that I use is Acid Pro. And that is one of the first softwares that I use and just stayed with that. But like when I first started with that, it would just be all found stuff that I would search online, find stuff, and then everything was just in the computer. And now I have a little interface, like a Kai interface that I use with Acid Pro. So I'll record, anything, keyboards into their vocal stuff or anything. And so it's a lot more recording now, and it's the same process though. I'll instead of finding the samples, I'll just record them and then flip them the same way that I would. Like I think I only had to clear one sample for the album, which is the intro, which is like taken from like a Polynesian like meditation CD or something like that, vocal sample. Like when I heard it, I was just like, had bought the CD, and once I heard that, I was like, I have to use it. I have to figure out how to clear it, because I just wouldn't be able to kind of create something like that on my own. So, but I think that was the only one that had to like properly clear.
I think if I wanted to entirely stop sampling, I would have to just entirely stop listening to a whole,
Yeah.
Vast swath of music,
Right.
and I just am not sure if I can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what it is. I mean, whether you're listening to a CD or an 8-track or whatever, an MP3, sometimes you just hear things and you just think, am I the only one that hears this? You know what I mean? Like it would just be so sick to flip this.
Start pumping your bunions, I'm coming, I'm the dumbest. Who flame throw your fuck shit to Funyuns. Flame your crew quicker than Trump fucks his youngest. Now face the flame fuckers, your fame and fate's done with.
I rock Charlie Brown, Peppermint, Patty, Linus, and Lucy. Put coke in the doobie, roll woolies to smoke with Snoopy. I still remain that dick grabbing slacker.
How about some of the guys on your album? How do you have long relationships with the guys, like some the vocalists and rappers on your album, or some of them work for the first time? Or
I mean, just to take a couple examples, I mean, there's really not that many features on the record, but the ones that are on there are, by design, I guess you would say. I mean, the Nobody Speak track with Run the Jewels, that was, I mean, I definitely went into the record as I usually do with, I want to be progressive, I want to be future thinking and look to the future and be progressive, but that track is just so kind of, there's an aspect of it which is very definitely kind of a classic boom bap, New York rap kind of feel. But at the same time, I didn't want to use somebody from the past, or I wanted to use somebody maybe that understood the roots of the music, but is also doing important contemporary work. And so to me, it was Run the Jewels and No One on that track. And I've known Elle off and on for a long time, but obviously been a fan for 20 years. And I felt lucky to be able to get them, because they were, still having a moment. But at the time that I was able to get them in the studio, it was like Mike on CNN every other minute. And, they had just done Jimmy Kimmel the night before. So
wow.
It was, I was glad to get it. I mean, as long as I've known Elle, sometimes it's just when that train is rolling, there's no getting off. And I didn't take it for granted. I definitely, I didn't count my chickens before it was on tape, put it that way.
Right. Did you do most of recording and stuff, or making beats like at home, or you have a studio? Like
I do almost everything at home. Yeah. I mean, back in the day, you could maybe break off, a percentage of your advance or whatever, and put in that work in a big studio, mainly to make the label happy, so that they feel like the money's being well spent. But in this era, you can't justify that, really. I mean, it made sense to book studio time for that purpose. And sometimes in the mix stage, the money can be, worth it. But I like to make beats at home. I like to be in my own element. And I don't feel like I can sometimes get all the way in the creative flow when you're dealing with like engineers and other people. It's just, But I mean, I guess what's different about this record compared to last ones for me is I'm using Ableton Live to make the beats now. And
okay.
I had been using it for live literally show purposes before, but I feel like it's important to switch it up sometimes. I definitely, on the last record, I tried using Machine for a while, and for whatever reason, it didn't speak to the way my mind works.
Machine, yeah.
It really wasn't until Ableton just, there's an elegance to it in the way that my mind works. And it, not only does it make sense to me, but it's shaved a bunch of time off my beat making. So
that's really important
in a good way.
too. Yeah. I tried to switch up doing some stuff, and after like maybe 2 weeks or something, I was like, it was just a time thing, like you said. I was like, if I do this in my other program, I can do it in a second. And I was like, I know what I want to do here, but it's gonna take me so much longer. I always end up going back to what I use. But like you said, it's important to also evolve that. So I try to bring new elements into that. Like I said, with the recording stuff, and because I know I don't want to get stuck doing the same thing. So I do try to bring new ways in. To do that, I use new things. Like I use my iPhone or iPad a lot, and I have a little mic that I put into there, and I use a lot of apps and stuff on my those devices and record into my acid. So there's a lot of really cool sampling.
Damn, see, that's something that's a whole new frontier for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you up on a few of those that you'll really love. But there's so many out there, but the ones that I use, probably like 2 or 3 apps that I use for like almost everything now.
So other than just recording something though, like, is it processing stuff? Is it like an effects processor, or is it doing something to the sound and then you export it into acid, or
from the phone stuff? Yeah, so it's like a few of them that I have are like sampling ones where you just will record right into it. You can use the mic that comes on them, but it's not that good. I have a little mic that is better quality, but it's just like sampling on here. Like you can use this mic and then, just playing it like that. So, yeah, so it's really fast, and I'll carry it around and just, you know what I mean? And some of them are just like little drum machine ones that are, not doing too much crazy stuff, but just like sounds and things that I can play on, because one of the things that I just got tired of was doing everything on a mouse and keyboard and stuff. And that's why I kind of wanted to switch to like MPC, because I just wanted something to play and feel like I was doing, just something more musical or fun. So that's why I started looking at stuff like that. And I found little drum machine ones where I can just jam on, like I'm playing the drums on it and then record it all and then chop it up,
Wow.
And they have, there's like crazy stuff like MIDI stuff now that I don't get into all that, because I just, with my program, I just use audio stuff, because I don't know if it's really good for MIDI stuff. Maybe I just never learned how to use it right. But there's like crazy, there's so many like iPhone apps and stuff that is like they actually can do MIDI stuff and everything like that. But yeah, I just use it for the audio and then record the audio into the interface and then chop it just like I would the other stuff. But
well, cool, man. Well, hey, it's good to finally chop it up, because I mean, bumped into you on New Year's at that show, but it's a gig and there's a lot going on and a lot of people around. But yeah, man, just thank you for the inspiration.
Yeah, same here. Thank you. And we have a lot coming out for everybody to look forward to. A lot of music, and thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Bluebells waving, leave me hazy by the time.
Hi, I'm Elia Einhorn, and you've been listening to DJ Shadow and Clams Casino on the Talkhouse Music Podcast. Subscribe to Talkhouse Music and Talkhouse Film podcasts on Stitcher or iTunes. Upcoming episodes include RZA in conversation with Interpol's Paul Banks, and Proto Martyr's Joe Casey chatting with Parquet Court's Andrew Savage. This episode was mixed by Mark Yoshizumi and premiered on Pitchfork Radio. Till next time.
I know this, for I had my chance. And the light falls down on dirty stone. God's no home, God's no